Hey folks, so this is a course overview. Um, you'll notice that I don't have my syllabus up. Feel free to read the syllabus. There's a lovely course description in there. The gist that I want you to know is that queer theory is an upper level course, and uh, in general, when we talk about queerness, we usually think that we're talking about exclusively um, issues of identity in terms of maybe orientation or gender expression or gender identity, although we'll just put a pin at that last one because I personally don't like using queer as a catch-all that includes trans folks, but that's just an aside. Some people do use it that way. So anyway, generally when we're talking about queerness, we think about identity, right, in some kind of way. But queer theory is sort of like not that, in the sense that I want you to start thinking about queering as a verb, right? And there's a way in which queer theory is really about kind of sort of being contrary to a lot of what people sort of take for granted as like norms about like what's good and what's desirable, what's normal, these types of things. And so in that way, queerness as like a lens for thinking about the world gets detached from LGBTQIA plus identities, and it gets used as an analytical tool to sort of rethink a whole bunch of things. And so that's kind of cool, right? Because that means that we get to have conversations about queering different things. And so one of the things that I want you to understand and that I hope that you get from this course are the ways that people are applying queer theory to like really wild contexts. Like some of the things we're going to be talking about, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Because some of the things are talking about like identity related, issues. But I did on purpose kind of put in there some of the kind of like fun and whimsical things in there as well. Like we're reading a piece later on in the semester about like queering hiking and Instagram, right? And just a whole bunch of other things. There's one on queering yoga, queering coloring books. We're doing that one here soon. But the idea here is just keep in mind that you can apply the queer theory as an analytical tool to just about anything. Okay, so just note that. All right. So in terms of organization, I've got the first 6 to 8 weeks of the course done. Everything else is on post-it notes. This is my life right now. So just sort of know that there will be a flow to it, if you will. But yeah, the course objectives, I want you to understand that queerness is a verb. I want you to be able to, at the end of the class, be able to synthesize the kind of themes that get talked about in queer theory and how various scholars are using queer theory as a lens to look at other things. And then also to be able to apply some of those concepts that we're learning in class to unsettle your own thinking. And we're going to be doing that along and along in the class with these like just really sort of like micro conversations that we're going to have on our course Slack page. And then also just like understanding that, we want to center marginalized queer and trans perspectives as we're talking about things. And you're going to notice that my class has intentionally centered the voices of multiply marginalized queer scholars and queer people. So even when we're talking about like queering coloring books, right? I'm making sure that the topic itself, is still figuring marginalized queer and trans folks. So just sort of keep that in mind, and hopefully, we can learn to sort of talk about those things with some nuance. In terms of required course materials, there's no book, everything's free. And then, you're going to have a Slack account that's free. I just sent you an invite to that. And then you just need your Google, your Gmail suite. That's it. It might not be a bad idea to like grab you a pair of headphones because we are going to be, certainly watching some movies, but we're also going to be like listening to a podcast. So, I mean, I personally think it's not a shabby idea. I have my wireless headphones right here. And when I'm listening to podcasts, I usually just sort of listen to them on my phone. It makes me feel a lot less like I'm stuck somewhere, but you can decide that on your own. There are going to be some times where I ask you to like doodle and color. So if you have colored pencils, it might not be a bad idea. Um, if you have access to a printer, there might be one time when we're doing like a digital coloring book thing that if you have access to a printer, that could be cool, but it's not the only way to do it, and we could do a ton of workarounds. Because I mean, I have a printer and it's a giant pain in my ass, and I don't even like to use it. So like, I get that. It's just sort of one day, and we can like sort of do other things in and around that. But really, that's neither here nor there. There's not a lot that you need. You might need some colored pencils because we do a lot of doodling. That's it. There are going to be some days where I'm going to ask you to, and I'll tell you like sort of for homework that, like I'll alert you like the day before, but like sometimes we might do something that asks you to maybe have on some comfy clothes, because they're like the day that we're doing like talking about queering yoga practices, right? We are going to be doing some cool yoga poses from led by like a Black trans femme person, and talking about that experience. And there's like the little 8-minute thing. No one is going to see you do yoga. It's just you, right? You could just honor system it, but like the whole idea is that everything that we do in this class, like if a scholar is writing about queering coloring books, we're going to color, right? So we're going to read the piece and then we're going to color. Because the thing is that you can't really understand what it is that a person is writing about if you don't like deeply engage with the thing that they're, talking about, like to the extent that you can, right? So, that's why we're going to be, doing some immersive learning here. And hopefully you will enjoy that. I think it will definitely make this class a lot less intimidating. It's not an intimidating class. In terms of the assignment overview, speaking of it's not intimidating, there are no major assignments and there is no exam in this course. The reason for that is that because I can teach you everything that you need to know, and you can learn a whole bunch of stuff without engaging in any kind of like high stakes, stressful, punitive thing. So here's how we do grades. There are 28 times that we're meeting in class, right? And basically what's going to end up happening, I don't even know why I have this thing about election day in there, sorry. So 28 days in class, right? I only expect 2 things from you when you're in class: that you've genuinely completed your assigned homework, right? And that you have engaged, that when you're in class, you're like actively engaging with the course activities, right? So if you bring your whole self to the class when we meet, right? You show me that you're prepared and that you brought your whole self. You're going to get an A in this class. So, but there's like obviously a sliding scale. We're in the pandy right now. I'm not trying to be like a horrible person, right? So if 25 times or more, you bring your whole self to the course, right? When we meet, you're there on time, you've done the stuff, you're engaged, you're cool. You get 20, you're going to get an A, right? And 22 times or more, you'll get a B. 19 times or more, you'll get a C. And then so forth. If you put in any kind of effort, you're not going to fail this course in any kind of way, right? This model seems a little, I guess, queer, but it really does end up working, because you're not going to be stressed about, oh, what's my exam going to be on, all of this. It's just like, hey, I've just got to be present in this moment and engaged with this material. And you're going to find that you're going to end up learning a lot more stuff and engaging with your peers a lot more authentically when, your grade is attached to just doing the stuff that you're supposed to do. Okay. So yeah, how am I going to tell that you've done the homework? Well, I mean, I can tell by the kinds of comments that you'll be making right on Slack, but also there are going to be some times where I like assign like an active reading exercise for homework. What does that mean? It means that like instead of reading a queer theory article on your own, you're going to be like reading it alongside your peers, which is going to make it a lot less lonely. So you're basically crowdsourcing stuff so that there's not this whole, oh God, what does this mean sort of situation. Your other peers are in that document reading it alongside of you and annotating it and highlighting. You'll be talking to each other. So there's that. There are 10 of us in this class. Anytime that we do an activity in class, I'm going to ask you to interact with your peers. Like if you post something, after you're done posting, I'm going to ask you to read and respond to your peers' comments, but only like 2 or 3 per time. Because our class is on the smaller side, just I would say try to be mindful that you are responding to sort of different people. And obviously, if you want to respond to more people, you can, but I don't want to like fatigue you, right? So that's what that's there for. And the reason why I'm also sticking it to such a small number is because I want to make sure that the conversations and responses that you have with your peers are actually engaging, and it's not like, yeah, I thought that too, or good point, right? Like actually like engage, with them. And I'm never asking you to write more than like 3 or 4 sentences as like a comment, because it's ridiculous when they're just like huge long paragraphs. That's silly, right? And sometimes I'll have you do stuff like doodle a response to something or whatever. So all this to say, it's not an onerous class, and I'm really trying to do everything that I can to make this course enjoyable for you. Yeah, and then the other stuff is just, hey, how do you contact me, right? So you can contact me during class time, and you can contact me, look at me changing the class time because I can't believe that was left over from last semester, I guess. So yeah, you can contact me during class time on Slack. I'm right in front of my computer at the same time that you are. You can use the Ask GPAT channel. You can text me if it's urgent. You can email me. I will say that it's a lot easier just to get your questions answered on Slack because I'm a lot faster with it. I get so inundated with email, right? And then my office hours are on Tuesday and Thursday, online, obviously, on Zoom. I would like you to tell me like 24 hours in advance if you are going to attend my office hours, because someone else might be in there, right? And it's a little bit different than like an in-person office, right? Because I don't have a door to close, right? So just sort of let me know that. Last thing, just check out this disclaimer, if you will, on LGBT studies courses. How do I put this? We live in a really crappy, racist, transphobic, queerphobic, ableist world. And what that ends up meaning is that there are not as many opportunities for marginalized folks to talk about things that mean something to them on a personal level. And so it gets really hard when we're in like an upper level class like queer theory, because we want to just there is sometimes frustration. They're like, oh, why are we reading this thing about yoga or coloring books? I want to talk about this thing. Now obviously I have a social space on Slack. We can certainly talk about things and have like sidebars, like hear me out on that. But I do think sometimes there is frustration that maybe the material isn't what we want, or isn't easy. That's another thing. Sometimes folks think that LGBT studies classes, by virtue of our identities or our affinities with LGBT people, that must mean that the course is going to be like not difficult or not intellectually rigorous, right? And so that's something that is not true, right? Like it's an academic discipline, and like the scholarship is hella hard sometimes. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's supposed to be like, don't you want LGBT culture to have like awesome, like difficult, badass, smart ideas? Of course you do, right? So it's just that there's that disconnect, right? And the same thing too is just keep in mind that you can be LGBT identified, you can also be someone who is an ally, and that doesn't mean that an LGBT studies course, especially a queer theory course, because remember, queer theory is like designed to like poke the bear over and over again. So it is very likely that you're going to end up reading something that you're like, what the hell? Or it's going to piss you off. That is normal, okay? Just sort of check out my comments on that, but just sort of know that's basically your lizard brain kicking in. We all have a lizard brain. And it's just, you know, something that you just sort of want to be mindful of, all right? So that's it. That's the overview of the course. It's going to be, I hope, a really good experience for all of us. And yeah, I'll see you for the rest of the class doing other things. All right.